Welcome to the Masterclass for the Settify Excel document. Now, this is something that we've added reasonably recently to the system based on the feedback that we got from a number of lawyers around the country. And the lawyers that are using this spreadsheet function have been giving a really positive feedback about it, saying that it's extremely useful when you are keeping track of the assets and liabilities in a matter, when you're down at court, discussing outcomes and settlement options, when you're modeling different proposals and possibilities for clients. It can be really impressive to send to a client quite early on in the process, after, say, the first meeting or after a few bits and pieces of discovery have come in. So I'll show you how you can access and download those the spreadsheet and then actually go through and talk about how we can use it to really good effect. So let me share my screen with you. Firstly, you can just download it really simply from the Settify admin portal. So here we'll do a training one. On the screen that's got the client's information in it, you simply click the Excel, and then you can either flick it along to a lawyer if you want to, send it by email. Otherwise, you can click to download the spreadsheet to your own computer. Now, I downloaded this one earlier. So here's what it would look like at the start. So you'll see that it has the assets and the liabilities automatically pre-filled, and the super as well. So what are the things that we can do with it? Firstly, we can see instantly the total net pool that's being calculated, total super, net pool excluding super. You can see we can start playing with the percentage figures, but I'll come back to that in just a moment. The spreadsheet allows you to keep track not just of your own clients' values, but also what the other client is asserting about the values of various different assets and liabilities. So if, for instance, you've received an affidavit from the other side setting out what they say the pool is, you can keep track of their version of it. So, for instance, if they thought that your value of the property was over, you can keep track, and we can see what they are looking at in terms of the value of the home. Now, let's make that a little bit more realistic. 1.9. There we go. You can keep track of the confidence, how certain we are about these various different values. Now, these obviously come pre-filled with the client's confidence. So if the client says they're just guessing, they might say they're somewhat confident, quite confident. They might say that they've got evidence, but as we all know, it's always important to cite the primary evidence yourself. And once you've done that, you can update that to say what have we actually cited evidence for and what value has been agreed. Obviously, if certain values have been agreed without the need to actually seek formal valuations. There's also the notes function. So it's literally just a box where you can add notes. So, client says this is high. You can also add the note of supporting evidence that you've got. Now, quite a cool thing that you can do with this, if you want to, is actually hyperlink a document from your computer into this spreadsheet. So it's actually quite simple to do. If you've got a valuation already, you just right-click, go down the bottom, add hyperlink. Now, different versions of Microsoft Excel might look a little bit different to this, but if you want, you can choose a document that you've got. So let's say property valuation there. Okay, add that. Great. And that's now hyperlinked to this document. So anytime you want to, you can just literally click on that and it will bring up that relevant piece of evidence. It's quite a cool and quite advanced function. We can also add values if we're wanting. So say we work out that the joint share account has 10 grand in it. We can add that as well. Now, to add columns, here's something that is a little bit limited
by the function of Excel. So it's important to do this the right way. If you want to add extra rows, to add extra assets, you right click on the number, you hit insert, and that will insert a whole new row with all of the formulae that we need to make the system or the spreadsheet still work. Don't just sort of copy paste or do other ways of adding cells. All right, so once we've got what our client is asserting and what the other side is asserting, we can then start modeling the percentage divisions. So for instance here, we might get instructions from our client and think, okay, it's likely that Timothy is going to receive 40%, say, of the property pool, and Sally would then receive 60%. So that automatically rejigs all of the calculations and says, all right, Timothy's total keep would be the 833, Sally's total keep would be 1.2 million, just based on that percentage division. So obviously that's something that you can play with. Perhaps you want to model a 42% and see how that actually rejigs the calculations. The next step that we can do is we move back up to the top, up to step 3, which is the who keeps what. This is where we can start allocating who keeps each of the assets and indeed whether we sell them, and so that we can start actually modeling what the outcome is likely to be. So let's say Tim would keep the car, joint bank account. Let's say Sally keeps it. Sally can keep her shares, and let's say that Tim would keep his shares. Similarly with the liabilities, and you'll notice that what I'm doing is clicking on the actual cell, and then when you click on the cell to the right hand side, the little arrow will come down, and you can then choose the various different options. Superannuation is quite cool. We've added the ability to each keep own to equalize to a 50-50 split, equalize to a certain percentage, or even nominate a specific dollar split. For instance, if you're wanting a particular amount to be brought across. Let's say we're going to equalize to a certain percentage, and you might have seen there, it's automatically defaulted to the percentage that we've said that Timothy would receive in the overall amount, but of course you can change that. So let's say Timothy, wants to keep 60% for whatever reason. All right, having done that, we can now start looking at effectively the effective orders. So this is something that's really great to clarify in your client's mind what it is that we're actually talking about when we're talking about these various different percentage divisions. It can all seem very mathematical and confusing, but once we actually set it out in black and white, it can all start to make a lot more sense. So here we have got Timothy, who would keep the car. He would keep some shares and the proceeds of sale of the Mercedes, and there would need to be a payout from Sally of a pretty significant amount. He would have to make an adjustment out to Sally, and so his total keep would add up to that $875,000 mark, which when we go back up here, we'll see that's what his entitlements are. Let's have a look at the effect for Sally. So here she keeps the house, she keeps the joint bank accounts. And this spreadsheet is having a bit of trouble, I think, because of this video software. So she keeps the house, the joint bank accounts, her shares. She would get a division of super. She would also have the mortgage on the family home. She'd have to pay out a debt to Timothy. So obviously she would have a fairly substantial amount of liabilities in order to give effect
to what we were initially modeling. So let's take a look at what would happen if we say, well, maybe instead of Sally keeping the house, let's say what would happen if Timothy keeps it. So Timothy keeps it, and we would say, obviously, if he's keeping the house, he's likely to be responsible for the mortgage. We can then go back down and model what that will actually look like for these parties. So here we go. Now we've got Timothy keeping Lonesome Road. We've got him still keeping his BMW, and here he would have to pay Sally out a pretty significant amount. And again, even more so than before, he's carrying a pretty massive liability burden. Now, whether a bank would owe him that is obviously something he would have to make his own inquiries about. Now, after having done that and seen it all in black and white, perhaps we would think, well, it looks like neither party is particularly well set up to keep it. So we might say we sell the house and we pay out the mortgage on the house. We can have a look down. What would the effect of that be? It means that Timothy keeps his, where are we? All right, he keeps his BMW, he keeps his shares, he gets a payout of the proceeds of sale of the house. He keeps his super. There is that super adjustment that we worked out before. He still gets his $875,000. He's got zero liabilities, and he's got a pretty sizable chunk of cash there. Similarly, with Sally, she would keep the funds in her bank account and her shares. She would receive the proceeds of sale, or a division out of the proceeds of sale, and it's obviously automatically calculated the actual amount that each party would keep. The super division, that means total assets and super. She would have no liabilities, so each party would walk away with zero liabilities, a pretty good chunk of cash, and obviously worked out with the specific dollar amount that you could add into orders or use as your division when you're setting those out in terms of agreements. Now, there are plenty of other things that you can play around with, obviously, in terms of, working out the various different percentage divisions and how those can have different effects on the outcomes. But really, this is something that's an incredibly powerful tool to use, something that can be extremely impressive for clients when you're down at court and you're quickly modeling various different outcomes and different possibilities. Using your own values, using the other side's values can really give you a great leg up. So I'd commend you to try it out and really use the system to the best effect possible.